I
Yeah.
really believe that BMX is unique in there. And
I,
the things we're talking about right now are central to that
yeah.
idea, that concept,
It,
that fact.
it is. I talk about BMX being really weird in a really good way.
Yes,
And
it
it's
is.
very
Yes,
fun
it is.
because you don't, you would never, well, I won't say never, but I've never known anybody who has been talking to somebody and goes, oh, yeah, your kid plays Little League. My kid's in Little League. Hey, if you're in the area, you should stay at my house. But in BMX,
No.
but
Uh-uh.
but that's not weird at all. In
Oh,
BMX,
your
it's
kid
like, oh,
plays
you're
Little
gonna be
League? Okay, cool. Because
but
you
in
do
B
that thing where you don't get trophies and you where nobody wins, nobody loses. Is that the
that's yeah. But yeah, then
BMX? Remember, BMX is still old school stuff. You're trying to win. You
yep.
want to win. You want to beat all like real world stuff as opposed to all this goofball.
Yeah. Well, because but
No,
then in
I totally
BMX,
agree with you.
you
I've never heard anybody say, "Oh, you played Little League back in or something or other, Pop Warner football back then." Yeah, come on or stay at my house.
it's an instant
Nope,
connection
it's BMX.
and
BMX
people will
rules.
say, "Oh, come and visit. Let's have dinner. Let's stay at my house. It's
Stay with me
fine."
for a month.
Yeah,
We'll go to some of the events. Bring your bike.
exactly.
You sleep on the floor. Bring a sleeping bag. Yep.
It's a cool sport in that especially in that regard. I think I the community of it is unlike any other.
BMX Breakthrough is bridging the gap from old school to new school, from tracks to manufacturers, from new riders to their local tracks, and it doesn't stop at racing, but the mission is to connect people with bikes. Join me, Jay Oaks, as I interview key people in the sport and in the industry that are involved in their local circles, in their communities, at their local tracks, and aiming to make a difference on a local level. You'll hear stories, marketing tips, failures, successes, and a way to make a difference in your local BMX community. Let's dive in as we kick off this next episode.
Bob, how have you been?
I don't know how to answer that. Brilliant, amazing. Uh, my life, I'm blessed. My life is, I'm blessed.
That's good. That's good. I think yeah, we last we talked was very briefly at Frogtown. I think since you had come in for was it 2 days, maybe a day or two. Um and
One day.
oh, 1 day. Okay. Yeah,
Mhm.
and so I think you were on your way out, and there were lots of people wanting to talk to you, so I was letting them do that. I had plenty of time to chat with you previously, so I figured I'd let them have conversations with you. But yeah, I think we got to cross paths for just a few seconds, but we didn't get to catch up at all. So
Frogtown was cool.
it was.
Old,
It has
old
been.
school stuff.
It that has been so much fun. I've been there the last 2 years, and it has just been such an exciting event, and the whole weekend is packed with fun stuff to do, but just the environment and the track and uh just the conversations that come from it and the memories and the stories, and it's really
And
fun.
the old BMX people like Stewart. You probably
Yeah.
saw Stewart race a couple of times.
Oh yeah,
That
and
guy,
he hasn't
and
gotten
that
any
guy,
slower.
what is he? He must be 65 now.
Yeah.
65, and he's full on man. Anyway, amazing. The Red Baron,
Yeah.
saw him out there. A few other
Yeah.
dudes.
Eh,
Toby,
Yep.
did you
Yeah,
see
and
Toby? Toby crashed.
until he
And
got
he was
hurt
showing
and
me his bruises. God, his whole everything was bruised.
It was bad. Yeah. He was messed up, and he said he was on the edge of wondering if he should race or not. And then when he walked up to the moto sheets and saw his name wasn't on there, he's like, that's perfect. I didn't want to race anyway.
65. I don't know how old Toby is. He's probably, I don't know.
I don't actually know.
My guess, let's see, Stuart, Toby. I'm trying to think of back in the day. My guess would be Toby might be 60. He's
That,
doing really good, by the way.
yeah.
With all
Yeah.
his BMX businesses.
Yeah.
Man.
It's fun to watch. I was down there. Let's see. We were in Southern California for almost 2 months, I think, in April. And I actually didn't see Toby while I was down there. I stopped into the office a couple of times, but both times he was out of town, sometimes overseas, and having conversations and meetings elsewhere. And but yeah, we stay in touch quite a bit, and it's fun to watch what he's doing.
Oh, it is. I love that. I assume you're going to get around to asking me about this sooner or later. But last night, where would you guess I was last night?
Let's see.
At a
Let's see.
BMX race.
In Bozeman?
Yeah.
Were you?
But anyway, the point is at the BMX race, Rihanna, you just met Rihanna. Her two kids were racing for their second time ever.
Yes.
So that was really interesting. I'll touch on that in a minute. Those kids, I love those kids. But I'm looking at all of the machinery, and man, the chase bikes, and I didn't see any. What did he call? What's his new bike? Send it. I didn't see any Send but his box forks. I see so many products Race Inc. I see so many products out there. Toby I love that. He's doing so good.
Is it fun to see what Toby has done because you got to watch him grow up and be such a big part of his life? Yeah.
So is it fun? Absolutely. Yeah, I love it. I love it. BMX had a way, it seems to me, BMX had a way of teaching people, meaning the racers, meaning kids, how to be really tough in this world. How to, I don't know, just stand up and do stuff. And Toby is such a good example of that. So Stuart, he did it in a whole different way. Stuart's out there at 65. He's probably in the best shape he's been in ever, and racing and winning, stuff like that. It's BMX stuff.
Yeah.
And then so I sit at the races last night and watch all these people that probably don't know anything about the old school stuff that's going on. But I know what the sport is doing for them. I know it because I watched it. So am I proud of Toby? Absolutely. I taught him everything he knows.
And that's on record.
With this, yeah.
Yeah.
Transcribed, yeah.
We'll have to see what Toby has to say. But
Toby, Toby and Jill. I ordered a old BMX action jersey for very recently for one of Rihanna's kids, Ollie. You'll hear Ollie's name a couple times in this conversation. So anyway, Toby has the BMX action and the bicycle motocross action. Anyway, he owns all those trademarks now. With my blessings too, by the way. I love it. I can't think of anybody else I'd rather. And so he is doing stuff with them. Well, one of the things he's doing, let's see, promoting and protecting old school BMX. I think he's a 501c3, so there's no profit going on here. But anyway, what he's doing is just brilliant. But anyway, so I ordered a jersey for Ollie a couple weeks ago, and I got it. And I think Jill must package most of the orders that they get. So Jill sent me a note, and the exhibit that you were at, was it a year ago? Courtney
Yeah.
Collins and Big
I think
Sky?
that I think that was 2 years ago now.
Was it two? Could be.
Yeah.
Could very well be. Toby and Jill, she kind of mentioned, hey, are you doing the Courtney exhibit again? And I told her, yeah, it's April, what is it? April 7th is a reception. So a few weeks. And so I said, yeah, you want me to get you a hotel room? And they didn't she hadn't contacted me back yet, but there's an outside possibility I may see Toby and Jill at that thing in Big Sky in a couple weeks.
Oh,
Very
that's
possible.
cool. That would be really fun. That was a fun night getting to hang out with you. That was the first time that I had met Toby, and we got to spend a lot of time talking and having conversation, and it was fun to see the mixing of people that had known you, like Toby, that had known you for so many years, and then myself having known you for a very short period of time, and then Courtney having known you in a very different world entirely. I mean, still photography, but in a very different world.
Totally different world, sort of.
Yeah. With an asterisk. Yeah, it's similar, but definitely a really fun time of getting to spend time getting to have those conversations with you and hear stories from really a full spectrum across the board, and getting to meet some of the people. There was one gal there that you had photographed that she rides motorcycles. Just a phenomenal woman. She had tattoos.
Rose.
Yes.
Full tattoos.
Yeah.
Biker.
Yeah. And so much fun getting to have conversations with her and just the impact that you had made on her life as well. And which I think is a common, it's a recurring theme. And I know after having the conversations with you that I have, is that I know you won't take credit for it. But people give you, but people give you a lot of credit for what it is that you have helped them to achieve. And it's really just fun hearing the stories of these people talking about what you've contributed to their lives and the value that you've added to them.
You know, the thing in Carson, you were out there too. How long ago was that? Year and a half ago?
That was 2 years ago as well. Yeah.
What you're talking about here, let's see, I'm not modest. Okay. Yeah, I'm not. I went to Carson, and it was an honor. You know, they're giving me an award. That was an honor. I went to Carson, but you know what? When I came back, I had to, this is true. I had to kind of reevaluate who I am. Because what you just said about the impact that those magazines and me had on the lives of racers and man, I can tell you kids, there was a guy in here yesterday. Let's see, I'll wander off on that tangent in a minute if I can remember. But anyway, I had to reevaluate who I am and what I accomplished, and that magazine, those magazines had an amazing effect. I didn't know this for years and years on what a generation or two of kids who are now grown. So yesterday, I'm in here, I think it was yesterday, guy comes in, and this is a gallery I'm talking about, art gallery. This is a art portrait photography gallery here in Livingston, Montana. Guy comes in with his wife and his little girl, and we're talking about the portraits out there in the gallery. And anyway, he's kind of looking in my back room, which is where we are now, where we do all our framing and printing, and there's pictures hanging. I don't know what you can see in the background.
Not a whole lot. And see, some of the shelving. There's some of your photos in the background.
Anyway, but stuff like that. And so he's looking around, and I told him, this is not you can come in here if you want to. So he and his daughter came in. His daughter's about 12 maybe. and she says, let's see if you can see this. I don't know if you can make it out. See that picture way up in the corner there?
Yeah, the light one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She said, "What is that?" And I said, that's my son. He's a BMX freestyler, and that's a picture of RL doing a kick turn on a ramp uh, from about what, 40 years ago? And the guy, big tough looking dude, goes, "No, can I say shit on the program?
That's okay.
No shit." Because he is a freestyler too. He's a little bit later generation, but he knew who RL was. He knew about BMX Action Magazine. He knew about Freestyling Magazine. He showed me a couple pictures. He's this new age freestyle, like these big jumps where you go, what, 30 feet in the air and you toss the. Anyway, I love that stuff. But what you said, the effect that I had on a generation or two of kids, directly, indirectly, I'm so proud of that. And I kind of learned that in Carson. I didn't realize that. And so, like I said, I had to kind of reevaluate who this guy is here. And boy, it makes me feel good. That feels so good. That feels so good. My life has been, I'm doing good.
Yeah. I think it's good for you to be able to really sit with that. I think that there's some value in what you've been able to reevaluate there because you have had a tremendous impact. And sitting in Carson, obviously you were sitting on the stage, I was out at one of the tables, and listening to the stories of people going through and talking about you, which I would assume in some ways, you know, there was probably a little bit of uncomfortability when people are talking publicly about how great you are and all that, and listening to some of those stories. But listening to the impact that was made and the the freedom, the opportunity, the dreams that your magazine contributed to so many lives, and the inspiration, and uh, uh I mean, and it's just fun and humorous in some ways, hearing some of those stories about what you've been able to add to so many lives. I've enjoyed getting to hear those stories, getting to sit with those people that have been impacted by you, and then getting to sit with you and hear firsthand some of those stories from your point of view as well.
You know what? For a long time, every once in a while, somebody would this is past tense now, would say, "Oh, your magazine had a really positive," and you know, if you're talking to somebody, you don't want to tell them you're kind of ugly, or you know, you want to tell them nice things. So we as human beings are inclined to kind of puff things up a little bit. And that's what I used to think. They're being really nice to me. And I'd say, thanks, I really appreciate that. And I would believe maybe this much of it. It's just human nature. But somewhere, I think it was during Carson, I started realizing, you know, I've heard that way too many times now to disregard it. I need to understand that, and I need to incorporate that into my life. Does that mean getting a great big ego? I try not to. Remember, I told you I'm not that modest, really. No, does that mean getting a great big ego and telling everybody how wonderful I am? No, no, no. It just means that I need to understand that because I truly try to live my life the best I can, and I need that knowledge in my head, mostly so I can patronize people now, but with good stuff. Uh, yeah, I'm thinking. Do you know Dom Phipps?
I know the
English
name.
dude. He wrote the birth of the freestyle movement.
That's right. Yeah.
Dom has become a really good friend of mine. And in the process of writing the Birth of Freestyle book, he would call people up, and some of the people that were back in the day would want him to pay them to contribute to be interviewed or to show up, or they would shine him on or not be interested, or who are you, or something like that. And so Dom is so he's working uphill. But Dom, with that book, is becoming central to the old school freestyle, and by connection BMX community. He is elevating us old guys. Toby Stewart, he's elevating us by reporting on it. And of course, he's a younger guy who, you understand that like you,
Yeah.
who came kind of after the old school, old dudes, original dudes, translated. Dom comes to visit once in a while. He's working on a couple things that I will make a point of mentioning during this interview, which, by the way, I thank you for. I'm honored. I really am.
Well,
I'm
I'm
honored.
glad. I'm glad. Thank you so much
Truth.
for joining me.
That's truth. So anyway, Dom's in my house, and I'm telling Dom, quit pandering to these guys that think they're a big deal and you're not doing a thing. So I get to patronize people like Dom, and I told him, think this: picture Jason Statham, because he looks kind of like Jason Statham. And when you talk to these dudes, tell them, hey man, I'm doing this. Jump in or don't. I don't care. In other words, take your rightful place in there. So I patronize people now. I'm old. I get to patronize people. I think I've earned my spurs.
Yeah. I love
Oh,
that. I will say, actually, one of the things that stood out to me, it was not BMX related at all, but I could see your character of shine through in this moment. And it was back to the show that you did, or the, what did you call it? The gallery exhibit.
oh, at Courtney's
Yeah.
in Big Sky.
In Big Sky. And
Art exhibit.
yeah. Okay. So after the exhibit, we were walking over to the restaurant. And as we were about to go into the restaurant, there were a group of kids out skateboarding. I don't know if you'll remember this, but there were some kids out skateboarding. And everybody was walking in, and I was probably, I think I was next to Toby. I think Jill was next to you. And yeah, my wife and I were next to Toby, and we're walking in, and all of a sudden you stop, and the door's being held open for you, and you didn't go in, and you just started watching these kids that were on their skateboards. And it was interesting because in this moment, I thought, oh man, those kids are probably worried that this guy's going to yell at them for, skateboarding. And in my mind, there was a moment of like, oh man, these punk kids out skateboarding. And you crossed your arms and you just kept watching for a few seconds. And you said, what are you working on? And they looked at you, and they were confused that you were talking to them, and you were intrigued by their hoodlum like activities. And and all of a sudden one of them goes, oh, I'm trying to do, I can't remember if it was like a pop shove it or something. He was working on it. And you said, oh, well, how's it going? Can you show me? And you took a genuine interest in what these kids were working on, and you could see their demeanor change. And it was only, I don't know, it was 2 or 3 minutes that it was a delay, right? But what you did was you added value to them, and you saw what they were working on and the effort that they were putting in, because you've watched that through BMX, and it gave you so much, it seemed like it gave you so much joy to ask them and to get to talk to them. So anyway, that was a really fun moment for me.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Cool. Altruistic. I'm not altruistic. What I was watching was some really sharp dudes learning to do some really intricate things that I couldn't do. I couldn't do those. Man, I'd kill myself. They are doing something on the skateboards. They were doing something that is most of us adults out here can't do. So I'm watching some amazing people learning and growing and doing some amazing things. So that was easy. That was easy. The BMX, BMX. I raced motorcycle before BMX. I raced motorcycles, motocross for a while. I don't know, a couple of years. I wasn't all that good. I was a novice. Okay. I think the best I ever did was a second place, but I know how scary it is just to get on the line. That ain't even just to show up, just to be there, get on the line and commit to race. All that violence and everything else. I understand that. And I'm really glad because I'd go to a race and my stomach would be, geez, like not butterflies, like B-29s are flying around in there. And I am so glad that I went through all that pain and scary stuff, and bruises and scratches and broken bones and things like that. Because when we got to BMX, I understood what those kids, okay, so they're smaller and they don't have as many years as us. Those kids were doing things their parents wouldn't dream of doing. Those kids and so anyway, I see it, I appreciate it. I was watching it last night. Okay.
I love that.
BMX race last night. Rihanna's son, Ollie, who is a genius. He's just a genius kid. So he raced last night for the second time in his life. Second time, second race. His first race, which I heard about, I didn't go to. Last week, Rihanna came in the morning, and all we talked about all day was the BMX race that I missed because Ollie and her daughter, Ami, both got second place trophies. Second place on their first race. So last night was their second race, so I had to go. So Ollie comes up on the line. As I understand the procedure there, you have your heat or your moto or your whatever you call it. What do you call that, Brianna?
Moto.
Huh? Moto. Okay, so as I understand, and he's in the 8-year-old novice class. He's not even 8 years old yet. He's close, but he's not even 8, but he's in the 8-year-old novice class. His first moto, as I understand the procedure, the first two guys that finish transfer out into the main.
Yeah.
I don't know. Seems kind of counterproductive to me. It seems like they want to race, but if they win, they can't race until the main event. But anyway, that's how they do it. And I'm not going to patronize those guys. They're doing just fine in Bozeman at the track. So anyway, this is Ollie's second race. He hasn't learned to balance on the gate yet. So he's got 1 foot on the ground, 1 foot on the pedal. Gate drops. He comes off. There's 5 guys in his moto. He comes off next to last because he's getting a slow start. By the first turn, he cuts under tactics, cuts under the guy in front of him, and he's in second place. This is his second race. And of course, Rihanna's crying. I'm going nuts over there yelling. And so they go down the next straight, and he's coming up on the leader, and they go into the turn. The leader goes high, Ollie cuts underneath, and he's leading, and he leads all the way, and he wins. And he transfers to the main. Which of course we're all adults are just going nuts over that one. So the main comes along, and same thing again. He's not balancing on the gate, so he's got 1 foot on the ground, so he's slow starting. There's probably another 5 or 6 guys. They're all older than him in the class, and he gets off to a slow start. First turn, He does the tactics thing, cuts under a guy, gets up into maybe third, maybe second. Second turn, Rihanna is filming this thing. This is typical Paris. She's filming this thing on her camera, and she was showing it to us last night at dinner. And most of the times, she's just watching the race, and all you see is the ground in front of her because she's so wrapped up in the race. I think it was was it the second turn, Rihanna? Second turn, Ollie pulls the same number, comes in, cuts underneath on the turn, gets the lead, wins his second race in history. He wins it, runs 2 motos that day, wins both of them.
That's so fun.
And now let's go back to me. And I can remember when I'd get on the line with motorcycles, and I'm scared. I mean, I'm scared. These dudes, they're not adults, but boy, they've got the stuff. They got that. So back to the skateboarders. I love that. I love watching people do amazing things. Those guys were doing amazing things. So
yeah, it's amazing. I love hearing you retell stories, and even that moment of being in Bozeman and being able to watch the kids race and being able to be there to support them. And obviously the tracks have changed significantly since you were heavily involved.
Significantly, yes. Good word.
But it still
So
carries
the equipment.
Yeah. Yeah, the equipment has changed quite a bit. I actually I think it's an 82 Redline MX2 that I raced at
We
Dirty
got
Fest.
Redline. We got Ollie a Redline.
Oh,
It's
did
a
you?
junior model. It's all aluminum. It's really light. It's for 7-year-old kids. They've scaled. It's beautiful. Redline, though. Excuse me for interrupting.
Oh, that's okay.
I'll probably do that a lot.
The funny part is that I would probably get onto his bike, and the top tube lengths are so different now than they were back then. So the bike that he's on as a 7-year-old is probably about the same top tube length as this MX2 from the 80s.
Oh, no kidding. Do you know who Kevin Marshall is?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because he's the guy that had that the magazine had a major impact on his health, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he was. Yeah, the story about
Yeah, he was there in Carson.
childhood arthritis.
Yeah.
Okay, and now he is the creative director of Microsoft.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he's big deal. But anyway, if you want us to go through that story, we'll do that. But Kevin, you know who Kevin is. So we talked to him. He called the other day. He's going to send a bike out here. Old school bike. I think it's a Redline. He's going to ship it out here. I think he has a collection of them. He's going to ship a BMX bike out here. I think it's a Redline, and he's going to do that so he can go riding with Ami and Ollie. We all went to England together, and Ami and Ollie just love that guy. He is so cool. So anyway, he's shipping a bike out here to Montana, so he can go riding with Ami and Ollie on their race bikes. Ami has a Chase. Ollie picked Redline. So.
Wow, that's really cool. That's pretty fun. Yeah, it's neat to see the way that the bikes have changed. I mean, because speaking to the top tube lengths, is I think that MX2 from 82 is like a 19.5 top tube, and the modern race bikes are 21s.
I think your point might be correct, because I think we measured the top tube or read the specs before we ordered the thing, and I think it's right around that dimension.
Yeah, they've changed quite a bit, and so jumping on it definitely feels really cramped and a little odd. So
in Carson,
progressed.
In Carson, a really good friend of mine, you've probably met him somewhere along the way. Riley, I call him Riley, Rick Gaitan.
Okay. I know the name.
Okay, he has a collection of old bikes. but two of them are major, and I'm kind of involved with them in those two bikes. One is David Clinton's Kawasaki. That's ancient history there. And the other one is Tom Lund's Monoshock, which is also ancient history. But anyway,
Wow.
out at Carson, Riley was there, and he had his whole display set up, and he had David Clinton's Kawasaki from 1975, probably. Uh-huh. And so I said, "Hey, can I ride that around? The show that was before the evening event. Can I ride that around?" And he said, "Sure." And he put some air in the tires, and I tried to get on it. I almost couldn't get on it. My knees are like up in my face, and it's so tight and so cramped, I can barely ride the thing. So I know what you're talking about, and I haven't looked closely at like the new older guys' bikes that they race now. But my guess is I'm sure you're right about what was that? Oh, anyway, longer now,
Yeah.
longer bikes. They fit the size better.
Next time you're out at the track, there's a couple of kids there that are just phenomenal riders. There's a family, last name is Nevin. They're phenomenal riders. They're probably 16, 17, 18 years old. And anyway, they'd be really fun to watch ride. But you could go and look at some of those expert riders in the age of around the age range of when were really taking pictures of Toby and Stu and all those guys, and ask them to look at their bike, because their bikes are just phenomenally. I mean, they've become so long, and they're really light. They've moved to carbon fiber for the most part, and I mean frames,
Frames,
forks, cranks.
carbon fiber frames.
Yeah, frames and
Really, really
cranks
cool. I
and
didn't know that.
handlebars, and I mean
And everything, huh?
carbon fiber rims. It's wild.
Okay, handlebars, frames, cranks,
Yeah.
rims. I did not know that. Like I told you when we started this, technological dinosaur. Just cross off the technological. Just say dinosaur.
Well, I mean, for a dinosaur, you've got really cool stories though, so I think it's
Oh, I
completely
do.
fine.
Yeah, true.
Um,
And one reason they're so cool is they're so old, nobody's ever heard them before.
It's true.
And so
Yeah.
I tell a story and everybody thinks, boy, he's really brilliant. I'm not. I'm just really old.
Well, I was actually going to ask, you being in Bozeman, did anybody know you? Did anybody recognize you or know who you were?
No, I don't think so. Not to my knowledge.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, I figured probably not so much, but you get into a lot of the newer tracks, and there's definitely a lot more people that are less familiar with the old school
Let me tell you the
BMX.
way it really is. If I would have gone around that track, which is probably typical, and ask all these younger people, "Hey, you ever heard of Bob Osborn?" They'll go, "Who? Who?"
Which is unfortunate, which is why people need to know who you are, which is why we're talking right now.
I'm not real sure why they need to know who I am, but I like the idea.
I think I think they need to know who you are because of the impact that you have made. I will share. So one of the stories that or conversations, one of the conversations that you and I had in your gallery was when I came up there, and we ended up talking for a couple of hours, and there were a few things that we were talking about, but you were an instrumental conversation in the launch and overall the vision of what I'm doing right now through BMX Breakthrough. And it is it was a fun conversation. It was an encouraging conversation. I will tell you, the day that we went there, we had gone to Bozeman for the weekend, and we were supposed to go over to Dillon the day that we came to visit you. And so coming out to Livingston was out of the way by an hour each way.
180 degrees opposed
Yeah.
to Dylan. Yeah.
And it was not a convenient trip. And so on the way out there, I remember questioning and wondering, why are we going out there? Why, like, can't I talk to Bob at some other time? Can't I meet him another time? We could just scrap the whole thing. Well, we ended up continuing on the way, and I ended up getting to talk to you. And like I said, it was about 2 hours. And I walked away from that conversation and I told my wife that I was so incredibly encouraged because I felt like I felt like I was seen. I felt like I could talk to somebody that understood kind of what I was seeing and what I was talking about and what I wanted to see within the sport. And
what you're doing, what you at the time, what you wanted to do, what you're doing now, which is brilliant. You should explain that to anybody
Okay.
that might be watching this thing.
Yeah, so really, I mean, it started with this idea of seeing a decline of what it started with the 22 Carson, California show, and Bob was being inducted into the given a lifetime achievement award, and people were telling stories about him. And at that show, I started realizing that there were just not as many people in my age range that were represented at these events, and there was not a lot of mid-school BMX being shown. And I started having this desire to get back into racing, but I started seeing at the same time that tracks seemed to have lower attendance than what I remember them being in the late 90s. And so it started out with this idea of like, what has happened to BMX? And so coming into your gallery and having the conversation with you was so valuable because you shed light on all the value you saw from the sport of BMX, all the things that you saw happen for these students and these kids that you were working with, the character building, the quality building, the strength building, the mental toughness that you saw being built. And it made me realize that I wanted to be able to bring more new riders into the sport because of what it had taught me, what it had taught my kids, and the value that it had provided to you and so many others within the sport. And so that was just, it was a pivotal moment in talking to you. And it has been really fun to be able to connect with different local tracks around the country and being able to get their needs list together and simplified to their top 3 list of needs. What are the financial implications to each of these needs? And then being able to present that to the community for people that want to support local tracks to help bring in new riders.
You know what? I suspect that you have a background that is brilliant. And I suspect that it has something to do with promotions or promoting something, which is now what you're turning around and doing with BMX tracks, which you said that there's less attendance. There are so many screens, you know, phones, computers. Our demographic, pretty much when Nintendo came out. So
Yeah.
what happened was about 1988, Nintendo came along, and our demographic just all went inside and sat down in front of a television screen or something and started playing video games. And that hasn't gone away. And there are so many kids. Rihanna and I have conversations because she is really top notch. She is such a cool parent. I don't know how she does it. I really don't. But her kids don't carry around cell phones. They don't. They hardly ever go on the internet. They use their brains. That's a new concept in this
It's-
day and age.
It's
Use
shocking.
your brains. Because of that, I already told you, those are brilliant kids, man. But anyway, that's what everybody's doing now, and that's what you're fighting. Everybody's looking at a screen, walking around. They don't use these anymore. They just look at a screen, text their buddies, and I don't know. So I think what you're doing, I think you're swimming upstream. I think what you're trying to accomplish, we need it so bad. We, the whole world, actually, right now, need ideas like that and people who will push them forward so desperately. I hope you are hugely successful in that. I hope other people see what you're doing and in their own way, their own expertise, their own whatever they do something like it.
Me too.
Yeah,
I-
me too, buddy.
And I
So-
appreciate that.
The John Wayne thing here, Pilgrim.
I remember in that conversation in your gallery is that the conversation had quickly come up with screens, and we had glazed over that topic. And then I had this moment where it clicked, and I said, it was a turning point in the conversation. And I said, oh, you probably dealt with those screens too. And I remember it was almost like a somber moment, and your voice changed, your inflection changed, and you said, saw it, I lived through it. And it was this moment of realization that your investment into the sport went far beyond that of just a photographer. Your investment into the sport was you were invested into these kids' lives. And you went on to tell me about a couple of kids that you saw that had incredible potential. They were phenomenal riders, and you lost them to video games. And it is so heartbreaking when you see the potential that somebody has, or when you are so heavily invested and then they all of a sudden disappear. And especially when they disappear to go inside. You know, one of the things that I talk about with the BMX Breakthrough Project is that, if I'm honest, I don't care if kids keep racing, but what I want is to foster a sense of love for their bike and being outside and riding their bike around. Because in 20, 30 years, I want my kids to love being on their bike. If they're racing, that's cool. I enjoy racing, but we also enjoy going mountain biking and going to the skate park and just riding around town. And so that's the goal, is that, you know, a lot of kids get into the sport or into bikes in general because of racing. And, you know, some of the freestyle pro athletes have gotten into it because of racing. And so if that can be an introduction, really, we just want kids playing outside and playing around on bikes because of what it does for them.
And thinking.
Critical
In
thinking
other words,
at a fast pace.
work with this, be the best. How does that go? Do what you love and do it brilliantly.
That's good.
And don't smoke. So,
Words of wisdom.
yeah.
Quick detour to one of our gold level sponsors, Luminex Neon, who has partnered with us to help accomplish the mission here at BMX Breakthrough. We're so grateful for their opportunity, and there's a special place, a near and dear place in my heart for neon, all things neon, whether that's on paper, whether it's shoes, whether it is a sign in a living room or a garage space, it doesn't matter. I love neon, always have, probably always will, and so neon signs create a unique statement piece. So if you're looking for that for your bike shop, for your garage, for your workspace, maybe it's for your living room, Luminex Neon offers exactly what you need. So with unparalleled craftsmanship and endless design possibilities, Luminex Neon is your go-to for brightening up any space. You can follow the link in the description and use our promo code BMX Breakthrough 10 in order to get 10% off of your order and to explore everything that Luminex Neon has to offer.
I don't know if you know this one. Let's go back to screens. This is really, truly what happened to BMX Action and Freestyle and Wizard Publications. Because in 1988, essentially, they didn't die in 1988, but they were crippled to where a few years later they did die. Nintendo. Nintendo, as I recall, had come out about 10 years before and it fizzled. It didn't work. It wasn't any good. I don't know. And then in 1988, they came out and it did work. And it was, if you are on that side of the fence, brilliant. And it caused our entire demographic, meaning every boy in those age years, or however you say that, to go inside, sit down in front of a screen and play video games, and never came out again. So that's really what killed Wizard Publications too. So yeah, I know how that works and doesn't work, and how you get killed by it. So
Yeah.
how that went.
It changes things significantly. But speaking to Wizard Publications, I want to ask you for a couple of stories of things that you saw. And I don't have any stories that I'm thinking of right off the top of my head, but just of things that you saw within BMX. I've heard you talk about stories in the past, and speaking to the love of the sport and the love of what you got to do. I know that you traveled around with quite a few of those kids going to races and things. And I would love to hear just some of your stories that you saw of like BMX adding value to these kids' lives, or just a fun dynamic or something. Will you tell the story about Eddie Fiola when you first saw
Okay.
Eddie?
Fiola. What was it? Lakewood Skate Park? Lakewood Skate Park, I think. So I'm over there photographing. I'm over at Lakewood Skate Park photographing Timmy Judge, I think it was. And Timmy was great. Do you remember him?
Yeah.
Timmy Judge, here comes the judge. So I'm over there photographing Timmy Judge, and this kid comes up to me and says, "Hey," I don't know what he said, "take my picture." And I heard that ad infinitum.
But he didn't have his bike with him that day, did he? No.
But he's a good-looking kid, and so anyway, he talked me into it. So I said, "Okay." And he says, "Well, I don't have my bike, but I'll go get it right away." And I says, "Okay." And I'm done with Timmy, and Timmy leaves, and so I said, "Okay, I'll wait for you for a while." And so I got my cameras all packed up, but I said I'd wait for him for a little while, so I waited for a little while, and then a little while longer, and a little while longer, and man, I've got my camera bag in my hand. I'm heading for my car, and here comes Eddie, and he is whipped. I think it took him, I don't know, hour. I didn't know he lived 5 miles away from the skate park, had to run all the way home, get his bike, race all the way back. And so he shows up in jeans and a t-shirt, got his helmet, got his bike. Wonder what that was. Was that a GT? Whatever he had his bike. And so this is from my point of view. And so I got my camera back out again, and I'm going, okay, show me a few things you're going to do here. And so he's, he's going through the things, and he does. So I see the world through a camera lens, and bam, he flies up out of there, click. This is not digital, so I don't get to look at this. All I saw was click, and then he's back down again. However, in that jillion, let's see, what would that be? Probably 1/25th of a second, something like that. Something happened that I'm not real sure I can describe. Something about Eddie's, the dynamics of what Eddie was doing were, I never put pictures in the magazine that I recall of racers racing or kids riding without uniforms on. It's a safety thing. It's, I don't know, it's keeping some kind of image up. Eddie's wearing Levi's and a t-shirt. Didn't matter. That picture was so good that it went into the magazine. How do I say that? In the magazine's life, that was the first picture we ever ran somebody in Levi's on a bike. That picture kind of changed, kind of set the stage for guys like Segura and a slightly next generation Dominguez and guys like that. Eddie just like in one instant set the bar. And I got it in a picture, and he's up in the air and he's crossed up, and you look at his everything and you get it, man. This guy is going for it. And of course, Eddie went on to become world famous. How much that had to do with it? My best guess is, no modesty going on here, my best guess is quite a lot, because that was the first time Eddie got big coverage, and he knew what to do with it, or learned what to do with it because he did it, and became Eddie Fiola, king of the skate parks. So that was Eddie. Of course, that was what, 40 some years ago? Early 80s? 81 maybe? 81, 91, 101, 111, 45 years ago.
Wow.
Eddie and I are still really good friends. He put out a book, what do you call it, autobiography?
Yeah.
That was really good. Book was really good about his life. He is currently working on a movie about his life. And he was going to come out here. This is a Montana story now. He and his film crew were going to come out here, I think it was January of this year. And I was hoping they'd come because Eddie, I don't know where he lives, but it's somewhere warm and pleasant, and Montana in the winter isn't. And I was hoping he was going to come because we were having blizzards and whiteouts, and the wind is just ripping down the streets, and it was like 20 below zero. And I was hoping Eddie and his film crew from Arizona or somewhere like that would come out and experience some real weather. And so we're all set up. We're going to do it. And one day before, his main camera guy got COVID. So they canceled. But anyway, Eddie almost came out here to visit. He was going to come with them. So that was the Eddie Fiola story.
Man.
Let me try another one with you. This is kind of a different side of the story, a different side of the picture, because Eddie was a rider, a freestyler, a skate park, amazing guy who, all these freestyle guys now, all these motorcycle guys that go up and do all kinds of wild things on motorcycles. You know where they learn that from?
Yeah.
BMX guys, freestyle guys. Our free like Eddie Fiola and Segura and those guys. They learned it from our guys. Uh, so anyway, a little bit different side of that picture. We had you've probably heard this story, maybe. We had a drawing contest, and a guy from Montana won. Montana or Wyoming, I'm not sure which. At about the same time, freestyling was growing a lot, and we're thinking of starting a freestyle magazine, which eventually was freestyle. And so this guy that won the drawing contest, we sent him his prize. It was some kind of a bike, really good bike. But anyway, one day he came home he was in college, I think, at the time. You know this story? You know who I'm talking about?
No.
You don't?
No.
Okay, good. Anyway, there's this bike sitting on his doorstep, and he opens it up, and so he sent me a postcard to say thank you. And it was only one or two lines, and I wish I should have kept that. I really, really should have kept that postcard, but I didn't. And so I'm going to repeat back to you the gist of what he wrote, but it's nowhere near as clever or intelligent or something like that as he put it. But the postcard said something about, I got home and there's a bicycle sitting on my front steps, and I got so excited I spilled Mountain Dew, one of the whatever the BMX guys drank, Mountain Dew, or what's the Dew Tour? Mountain Dew. I spilled Mountain Dew all over my new Vans. Now I did that. That was really boring how I did it. The postcard that I got, 2 sentences, was brilliant. We called that guy up and asked him if he would come out to Torrance for an interview to be editor of Freestyle magazine. We flew him out there. Know who that is?
No.
Andy. Andy Jenkins.
Really?
Yeah. That's all I knew about Andy was he could draw really good, and he wrote 2 sentences. That's all I knew about him. We flew him out. I already knew I was going to hire him for the editor of Freestyle magazine. I already knew that, but you got it. You're a business. I'm a businessman, so I got to interview them, and I got to interview 2 or 3. You know, you have to do stuff like that. But I already knew I was going to hire him, and so he became the editor. This is a BMX guy, freestyle. I mean, skateboard BMX dude, who I don't know. He was 20 or 21 at the time. Freestyle magazine was brilliant. Brilliant. I get some credit for that, but I don't deserve it. Andy Jenkins. And then when the magazine got so busy, he had to hire this other dude. And he says, hey, I know a guy back east. Oh, here's another story. I'm probably not telling the stories you want to hear, but that's too bad.
This is great.
Buckle up. What kind of noise was that?
I don't know. I didn't hear it.
I don't know. Okay. Something's going on in my things here. So Andy is the editor of Freestyle magazine, and he is doing pretty much everything that he wants to do, except his grammar is terrible. I mean, it's terrible. I had to read everything he wrote, clean up the grammar, make it work with BMXers and skateboard. I'd not make it some kind of intellectual dictionary, or I don't know. But anyway, but it was worth it. It was worth it. Eventually, we got those guys a tutor. They were so bad they were so bad. We got him, Don Tossach. We got him a tutor to teach them English. So anyway, Andy one day says, hey man, I need help in here. And I'm going, okay, anything you say, buddy. And he says, I know a guy back in Minnesota or somewhere like that. And I'll contact him. And so one day, okay, so now picture this. Now I'm kind of switching sides of the story. The story I just told you is from my point of view. This is from Lou's point of view. Because Lou used to just bombard Andy with zines and letters and stuff like that because he read Freestyle magazine and loved it. And Andy got to know Lou through all these letters he sent. And I mean, it was like a letter a day, long letters. And so that's who Andy wanted to hire. So now let's be Lou, because Lou is going to accept. And he comes out to Torrance from Minnesota, wherever he comes out. At the time, there was I don't know if it was a video, let's call it a video. Probably there weren't videos at the time, but it was a movie or a short, something or other, called what? It was about the BMX Action Trick Team.
Okay.
At the time, I think Wilton was riding with RL. And so all of us are in maybe it's my office with the drapes closed and it's dark, but there's RL's in there, Wendy's in there, Wilton's in there, Buff is in there because he's hanging around all the time. I'm in there. Who else? All these guys that Lou had only been reading about, and that's when Lou shows up. And so the lady that watched the desk in the front brought him in. He came into the room. I didn't know about this until years and years later. Lou walked into that room. There's a screening of a BMX Action Trick Team movie going on, and there's all the freestyle guys, all these famous dudes in there, RL, Buff, Wilton. I don't even know who else was in there. And Lou was stunned. He didn't stay stunned very long. But anyway, there was Lou's introduction. But that's a BMX freestyle guy. We're still talking about interesting stories of BMX freestyle guys, right? That's okay. The next one is from my point of view, because a year or two went by. Lou's getting tattoos all over the place by then. I'm thinking, I ain't his father, so and he's got tattoos on his neck. I'm not sure if he tattooed, but anyway, this guy's getting tattooed. Andy is really mellow. He's quiet and mellow. I don't know if Andy has any tattoos or not, but Lou did. But they're living together, I'm pretty sure. And okay, so now a few more months goes by. Freestyling goes monthly or bi-monthly or something like that. Andy and Lou now need more help. So Andy comes in, he says, hey, I know a guy in Rockford, Illinois, or somewhere like that. And we need more help. And man, Andy and Lou and Spike, they get, yeah, I did some really good photography early on with Freestyling magazine. I get credit for that. I mean, it was really good. That's about it. And my editing, grammar, copy editing stuff for those guys. I get credit for that too. But the real credit for that magazine, the design, the art. We're talking BMX guys here. The art of that magazine, actually, I saw it happen, changed the magazine industry. Can I do an analogy here? Much like the BMX freestyle guys changed the motorcycle industry, sport.
Oh.
Do you see the parallel there? That magazine caused the magazine industry, some of them, sports magazines mostly, to up their game. It was that good. So anyway, they needed another guy, and they said his name's Spike. and he's coming out from Rockville, Illinois. I don't know where they met him, but they knew him from somewhere. And so I knew he's coming. And one day I walked out of my office into the back room where there are other offices built along the wall, glass fronted off individual offices. And then there's a lot of bicycles out there and storage racks and wrapping tables and things like that. And so I went out there to do something. I walked out there and there's this kid out there who must be 14 years old, blonde hair sticking up all over the place, little skinny kid, 14 years old. And I'm going, oh man, that must be Spike. And I'm going, and I'm thinking child labor laws. And I already know he's going to live with Andy and Lou. And you know what I did? I just turned around and went back in my office. I didn't go out of my office for days. I didn't want to meet Spike. I didn't want to know he's only 14 years old. I really don't know how old he was, but that's how old he looked at the time. So anyway, we're talking about Spike Jones here, who, let's see, Andy is still doing, I think he's a designer for a skateboard company called, you probably know, Chocolate or something like that. Lou is doing design work for, Lou did a book not too long ago for Nike. I think it was Nike tennis shoes sponsored the book. It was about freestyling, about the old days of freestyling. Brilliant. Andy and Lou, and probably Spike, collaborated on a beautiful, brilliant book. Just beautiful. So anyway, now Spike's aboard, and I'm expecting child labor. I'm expecting the FBI to break down the doors and hands up and arrest us all for, I don't know, running some child labor sweat. Anyway, that was Spike. There's a couple of stories. If I think of another one, I'll let you know.
That's good.
Greg, let me throw Greg at you.
Okay.
Greg. Before BMX action, way before freestyling, before bicycle motocross action, there was BMX News. Elaine Holt had the magazine, tabloid, BMX News. This would be about 1975. And for a whole bunch of reasons, because I wanted to because I was involved in BMX back then, not as a magazine publisher, but I was taking pictures mostly. And so I asked Elaine if she'd like Wendy and I, because she was taking pictures too, to I don't know, maybe test bikes, take pictures, write an article, submit it to BMX News. And so we're doing that. And one day we decide to do an article on side hacks. And I knew this kid, little skinny kid, who was pretty competitive. His name was Greg. And so I talked him into for this article we had a side hack from somewhere, I don't know who manufactured, I don't recall. But anyway, we had a side hack. We wanted to race it, see how it worked, take some pictures. And so this kid got another kid that he knows, which I'm not sure if I can remember, is Pat. Maybe I'll think of it in a minute. Anyway, that was Greg Hill. He was, I don't know, 11. RL and I knew him from going out to Western Sports Around. We sit up in the bleachers because RL and Greg raced the same class. And we sit up in the bleachers, and Greg and RL and I would talk. And so we were kind of friends. And Greg was he's pretty serious about racing. He gets his mindset. Anyway, that was 11-year-old Greg Hill.
But was he not, did he have a background in BMX?
Yes.
At that point? Okay.
His sister's boyfriend was Stu Thompson.
Stu, yeah, okay.
And so Greg's sister was always going to the races, and so she would take Greg with her. And of course, she's going to the races to hang out with her boyfriend, Stuart. So anyway, that had gone on for probably quite a while. To the best of my knowledge, Stuart and Tanya are still married.
Yeah.
Are they?
I believe so. Yeah.
I saw Stuart at Frogtown, but Tanya wasn't there, and I didn't want to ask him, "Hey, did you get a divorce or something like that?" But as far as I know, they're still together, and that goes clear back to early days in BMX.
Well,
So Greg had a ride to all the BMX races because his sister's boyfriend is racing there. And so, yeah, he raced for, I don't know how long. Wild guess would be maybe a year before I met him. But
Okay.
anyway, so this 11-year-old kid, man, this kid is straight up and down. If he's going to race, he's going to race. He's not diddling around. This guy is zeroed in. Greg, okay, that would be probably 1975. So now 85, 95, 105, 115, 120. That's 50 years ago. Greg hasn't changed. He hasn't changed a bit since then. He's still this straight up, dialed in, focused dude who's going to do what he's going to do, and he's going to do it brilliantly. That's so funny. Because I can remember back in those days, I had no idea the giant that Greg was going to become. And he did. Man. Greg and Stu ruled. And I suppose I should throw in the Pattersons. Those guys ruled old school BMX. But of all of them who ruled the rulers overall, old school BMX, my opinion is Greg. Stuart gets really mad at me when I say that. So too bad, Stuart. But anyway, and Greg, I love that. I talk to Greg every once in a while. He was at the Carson thing.
Yeah.
Here's a funny thing that happened there, the Carson thing. Greg and I we always pick on each other. It's a male thing. You don't go, "Hi, buddy, I love you. How are you doing?" You don't do that. You go, "God, you're uglier than ever, and you're a fur ball, and you know how men do stuff like that." So anyway, Greg and I and Carson, preceding the when Greg came up on stage, okay, preceding that, man, we are ready to really pick on each other on that thing. We're going to nail each other for everything we can think of. And then Greg gets on the stage, and do you remember that? I almost cried.
I do.
I wanted to reach over and just hug him.
I can't.
I hope I did that, but
I don't remember exactly what. I remember that it was. I remember it being very endearing. I don't remember what he said. I don't remember verbatim, but I remember the emotion.
we talked about a lot of things. The guy that put it on. Oh, I want to remember his name. Brothers. Steve Brothers, I think it is.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Who I should have, when we closed, I should have thanked him 1,000 times, and I didn't. I don't speak to groups of people very often, so I'm not real polished at that, and I didn't think to do that. And I am still sorry for not doing that, because he brought us all together. But anyway, Steve had a bunch of old photos of Greg and photos with captions and stuff like that. And so a lot of what we did is we're going through there, and kind of, for me, I'm kind of realizing how heavy those days were. That was serious, man. I mean, that was, And I read some of the captions that I wrote. I can remember one of them that I wrote 30 years ago that I've forgotten all about, and they were really good. They were really good, but they came out of those guys that raced, all of them top to bottom, but at the moment we're talking about the pros, the stars, things like that. Those guys were so focused on what they were doing. This could have been the Olympics, this could have been pro football, this could have been pro basketball. I don't care. Those guys were focused on their sport, and that elevated me. I had to stay up with them. I had to elevate myself to stay at that level. And the photographs were there. I did it with the photographs. And so a lot of the pictures that Steve was showing had the captions with them. I did it with a lot of the captions too, but one of them that I remember of Greg that I'd forgotten all about, that I'd written, but it was so right on the button. Greg is sitting on the grass, if you remember this one, crying. Do you remember that?
I do.
And the caption was something like this. I hope I can remember it. Greg is crying. He's not crying because he only got second place in the race. He's crying as a release to all of the pressure of that level of pro BMX racing, the release of the pressure after the main event. It just overcomes you. Anyway, I did some really good captions back then. Kind of comes back to me as a surprise. But anyway, I did good back there too, but those guys did really. So
I remember that. And actually that
ahead.
story, hearing you talk about that caption was, it was revealing in a really good way at the Carson show, is hearing you talk about that and realizing the seriousness and the reality of that situation. And especially, I mean, I deal with that now with my kids, having a 6 and a 7-year-old that are racing. And it doesn't really matter how old you are. And sometimes it's not crying because of, frustration or anger, or you're literally just exhausted. You have spent every bit of energy that you have, and the kids they're crying as we're going out to the truck, and sometimes it's when they've had a great day, and it's just everything's gone. Every bit
BMX.
of reasoning.
You're talking about BMX. It gets to your heart, and crying is just connected with your heart. Last night at the races, I'm watching the races, and I told you about Ollie when he took the low line, passed the guy, next turn he took the lead. I turned around, looked at Rihanna, and there's tears running down her cheeks. She's trying to yell, but she's all choked up because she's crying. Anyway,
Yeah.
BMX. How many sports? We're talking. Roughly 40 years ago. How many sports do the people involved get so close that affect your heart so much that 40 years later, you're doing stuff like we're doing? You're doing stuff like the Carson thing. You're doing stuff like, I haven't talked to you about Dom's book yet. Book release is coming up real soon. That's going to be a big deal. Reunions. How many, Frogtown, old school racing, how many sports? Name one. Not skateboarding, not to my knowledge, not basketball, pro basketball, not pro football, to my knowledge. I don't know. Are there any?
Maybe motorcycles?
No. Well, tell me a reunion in motorcycle.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'm not connected
A reunion
enough
where
in
all the
that
people
world.
just get together because they were part of a family back
Just
then.
because. Yeah, it's fair.
I don't think if there are reunions and that kind of heartfelt stuff going on with other sports, I am unaware of it. I
Yeah.
really believe that BMX is unique in there. And the things we're talking about right now are central to that
Yeah.
idea, that concept, that fact.
It is. I talk about BMX being really weird in a really good way.
Yes,
And
it
it's
is.
very
Yes,
fun
it is.
because you would never, well, I won't say never, but I've never known anybody who has been talking to somebody and goes, "Oh yeah, your kid plays Little League? My kid's in Little League. Hey, if you're in the area, you should stay at my house." But in BMX,
No.
but
Uh-uh.
but that's not weird at all. In
Oh,
BMX,
your
it's
kid
like, "Oh,
plays
you're
Little
going
League?
to be
Okay, cool.
But
Because you
in
do that thing where you don't get trophies and where nobody wins, nobody loses. Is that the
that's yeah. But yeah, then
BMX? Remember, BMX is still old school stuff. You're trying to win. You
yep.
want to win. You want to beat all like real world stuff, as opposed to all this goofball.
Yeah. Well, because but
No,
then in
I totally
BMX,
agree with you.
you
I've never heard anybody say, "Oh, you played Little League back in or something or other, Pop Warner football back then." Yeah, come on or stay at my house.
it's an instant
Nope,
connection
it's
and
BMX.
and
BMX
people will
rules.
say, "Oh, come and visit. Let's have dinner. Let's stay at my house. It's
Stay with me
fine."
for a month.
Yeah,
We'll go to some of the events. Bring your bike.
exactly.
You can sleep on the floor. Bring a sleeping bag. Yep.
It's a cool sport in that especially in that regard. I think the community of it is unlike any other.
Screens. We were talking about screens, iPhones and computers and video games, and diametrically opposed to that lifestyle is BMX.
Yep.
Period.
You're outside, your knees are getting skinned up, you're getting
And
you're
there's
getting
more,
hurt,
and
you're getting dirty.
yep, you're scared, and something is happening to your heart. Something really good getting to your heart.
Yeah.
And us old dudes, old school dudes, I'm a way older school dude than you are kind of not kind of that we are proof of that, because we are 40, 45, sometimes 50 years, Greg Hill, after the Stewart. He was racing at Frogtown, and he was not messing around either. We are absolute, undeniable proof of all of the things that we're talking about right now. All of the things that BMX does, promotes.
Yeah. It's a sport unlike any other. I think the value is so far beyond even the introduction. So, even you going and watching the kids race in Bozeman is them getting to race, them getting to win, learning how to win well, learning how to lose well. But those are only the beginning. There are so many things that happen beneath the surface that they will learn and that they will
Carry with them
obtain.
their entire lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And those things will continue to help them, challenge them, encourage them, build them, grow them. Yeah.
Yep. Real world things.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I love
Well,
BMX. I do.
and
Even as I keep saying as far removed as I am, I'm kind of getting pulled back into it.
You are, yeah.
Yeah, I am.
Well, so I want to be
Okay, so let
mindful
me
of,
tell you about this.
Yeah.
This has to, go ahead. You want to do something? You got
No,
something
no, go for it.
important here to say?
Go for
Okay.
it.
This is relative. I've been looking for an excuse to tell you this one. Relative to what I said about I keep getting pulled back into it. That's really not correct. It's kind of how I look at it. And then I realize I'm not getting pulled back into BMX. What are you drinking there?
Liquid death. It's just water.
Oh, good. That sounds, oh, I got my water too, buddy.
Have you had it?
Liquid death. I
Yeah,
never even, have you
it's
heard of that? Liquid death? Look at this.
it.
Sparkling water.
Yeah. So they have literally just water, and then this one's a sparkling water, but the whole thing is a marketing ploy.
Yeah.
And they made it. It's got the gold lid and everything. And so there are kids. They constantly will on social media. They will post these conversations of people. This is an entire tangent from our conversation, but
True.
they will. There was some kid that brought one of these to school, and the school told the parents not to let their kid bring this anymore because it looked too much like a beer can. And so anyway,
Yeah.
it's just a really funny thing. But so I found some the other day. They were on sale, and sometimes I like like drinking sparkling water, but it's funny to me because you'll see kids drinking them, and they look like a beer can, but at the same time, a lot of people will throw fits about it. And honestly, but what is a pop can? A pop can's the same thing as, it may have a little bit different look, but anyway, no,
Not
that's just
too
water.
long ago, I did a podcast, I don't know, 6 months ago or something like that. I did a podcast with Miranda
Yeah.
and those guys, they're drinking Coors.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, I said, what are you drinking there? So this is a cleaner show here.
At this moment, I'm going to interrupt our episode, our current interview, briefly to give a special shout out and thank you to our sponsors that have backed us financially in this project, in our mission, and give them a huge thank you. So at our gold level, we have Luminex Neon and Marketing Breakthrough. At our silver level, we have Sound Cedar Lumber and Bicycle Thieves. And at our bronze level, we have Pro Start Gates and Justin Shepard, Title Examiner. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for backing us. If you are looking for help with any project that you're working on, if you're looking for some cool things to do, go ahead and check out the links to their websites in our description and go ahead and visit them, show them some love. We are so appreciative for their support. And if you are interested in getting involved in a local track, helping out, or sponsoring a local track, sponsoring the BMX Breakthrough project as a whole, please reach out at j@bmxbreakthrough.com. You can also go to our website and find out some of the needs of tracks and some of the things that we are working on at bmxbreakthrough.com. Once again, thank you so much for your support. Let's dive back into this conversation.
Okay, so back to, I every once in a while I think about I'm being pulled back into BMX. The truth is, BMX is such a large part of me that I'm not being pulled back. I just have an excuse. I just have excuses to be involved again in different ways and not real often, but be involved again. That make any sense to you? I'm
Yeah.
not being pulled back. I thought I'd left it, but that's not true. I didn't know that. Remember I told you, Carson, I had to kind of re-examine who I really am.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I realized. BMX never left. Never left. Okay.
I think it's
So
probably
one of
partly
those
because it
things-
was such an integral part of you for so long.
Oh, if I look back, if I were standing in front of St. Peter now at the pearly gates, And he goes, so what was important? What did you do good in your life? What's your important things? Let's see, would BMX be the first thing I said? It probably would.
Yeah.
So let me sit
Let's
down,
go.
Pete. Let me tell you about this. We did BMX Action Magazine, we did Freestyling Magazine, we did photography, stuff like that. Okay, so one of those things that quote pulls me back or makes me more involved currently or something of the sort. Dom Phipps is doing a book release in first couple days in October.
Okay.
It'll be on a Saturday. Book release of the global edition of The Birth of the Freestyle Movement. So now we are right back into BMX. He's doing the book release at Dom. Have you seen that book?
I have seen it. I have not read it yet, but this
Oh,
conversation,
you know what?
I need to pick it up.
That's somebody else's book, and it's about freestyle. And Dom gave me a book because he asked me to write a foreword to the book, and so I had to, of course, look at my foreword of the book, and I would just read captions a little bit, and I'd flip through part of the book. I ended up reading that whole book. I read it front to back, then I read it back to front, and somewhere in there I realized Dom is brilliant. He is brilliant. The way he did this, and his voice is not in the book. Everything is interviews that he did. It's the people in the book speaking. I used to do stuff like that. I know how hard it is to interview one person, then go through all your tapes, old school stuff, tapes, edit them, keep the person's voice, keep what they're saying, but get rid of the dumb sounding stuff, condense it down to a magazine. I know how hard that is. It takes days. Dom would interview 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people from some certain period or area, or there would be a theme with it'd be like a chapter. He would interview maybe 5 people, take their individually, take their interviews back, edit them, and put them into almost a conversation, or at least a chronology that was almost a conversation between all 5 guys about whatever the subject of that particular chapter was. He did it brilliantly. Do you know how hard that is? Do you have any idea how hard that is to do? It's like borderline impossible.
That sounds exhausting. Like, because
But
I think of
Dom did
the
it.
video editing aspect of that, and trying to, like, because I've done that on the video side of things, but to put that into a book is a whole nother level.
A 500-page book, by the way.
Wow.
That book is, I'm pretty honest about things. I'm old enough that I can patronize people. They can't say a word about it. I can complain about things. I can be grouchy. There's advantages to being old. I do not, I speak the truth. As much as I'm humanly capable of doing, I speak the truth. If somebody shows me a picture that they took and they want my opinion on it, if they ask for my opinion, they're probably going to get it, and it's probably going to be pretty truthful. That book is brilliant. That book it just pulls you in to that. You live that period of time. So Dom's doing the global edition, 500 some pages of this book, which, by the way, one reason I'm promoting it here, Dom made me the first chapter of the book. This edition, I'm the first chapter. Wizard Publications is the second chapter, and the people that came out of Wizard Publications and went on into the industry of BMX or related industry. That'd be like Spike, Lou, uh, hold it, Andy, Lou, Spike Jones, other Gork. I'm forgetting some people. Kurt Smith, who designed BMX Action. He was brilliant.
Okay.
He went on. He's retired now, but he went on to design some major magazines. So
Wow.
Wizard Publications becomes chapter 2. And I think I haven't read what Dom's doing, but I think what he's after is what magic happened at Wizard Publications that caused all this creativity to occur. I can't wait to read but I'm of course really anxious to read my own chapter. See, I guarantee you, I will learn more about me. Who is this dude? But anyway, the book release, he's going to do 2. One will be in LA. He just called me up the other day, about a week ago. He was so excited because Vans just got in behind him on this thing. Vans is sponsoring his book release. It's going to be held in downtown Los Angeles at the Vans. I think it's their flagship store. They have an event venue there. They are providing that for Dom for his book release. It's going to be an all-day event. It'll be, I don't have an exact date yet, but it's going to be the very, 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 very first part of October. It'll be on a Saturday. It'll be a day-long thing, but there's parts of it. I think he is actually causing a reunion to happen with the Wizard people. I think, I'm not 100% sure, but Andy, Lou, maybe Spike, Valerie. Do you remember who you're too young.
I don't think
Valerie was a big deal. I hope Kurt Smith, the designer I told you about, comes. Just people who were central to that magazine, those magazines. But anyway, that'll be brilliant. This thing, BMX reunions have a tendency to be, somebody says, hey, let's have a reunion at this place. I'll call up these guys, you call up those guys. And over a period of a few weeks, all of a sudden it gets to be a really big deal. I think this thing with Dom is going to be a really big deal. Really, really. Everything, I don't know. I think it is. Then a month later, he's going to do a book release in Oxford, England, which we're going to. I'm pointing at Rihanna and her family, Rihanna and her husband and her 2 kids that I already told you about. We're all going to go to England and go to the birth of the freestyle movement book release in Oxford, England. And then of course we're going to hang around in Northern England and Scotland for another few weeks after that.
That's really cool.
Just keep that in mind. I'm going to guess, I'm patronizing now. I'm slipping into patronizing mode. You'll be there. I'll bet you will. I'll bet you $1.
I gotta
can we
shake
do
on it?
Yeah, shake on it.
I will have to figure out how to. I need to get a hold of Dom. Because I haven't met him, but obviously he's somebody that I need to have a conversation with.
Brilliant subject for a podcast.
Okay.
Brilliant. He's one of the new guys that watched us old guys, and then he grew up. He's I think I could say just about like you, except in his own area. And he has some skill sets that are brilliant that he now, in this time removed thing, in this time warp thing that is going on, is bringing in did I tell you he's an English dude? Looks like Jason Stratham.
Oh, yeah, you said that.
Speaks with an English very elegant sounding dude. Anyway, he brings his skill set back into the BMX freestyle stuff, and like you, he is elevating the thing. He is. He's anyway. Dom Phipps. He would make a great. He would be such a fascinating interview.
I like that. I definitely need to reach out to him, and then it'll carry more weight if I say that Bob Osborn told me that I need to talk to him.
Tell Dom that Bob Osborn said you will do this interview with Jay.
Perfect. Well, that's fantastic. I mean, that's some reinforcement.
It would, I guarantee it'd be a really good interview. You would find
Cool.
it fascinating because it's another facet. It's back to our conversation about BMX and what the people involved in it, how they learn, how they grow, how it gets to your heart, how it carries through the rest of your life. Sometimes even shaping your careers. Kevin Marshall.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Kevin Marshall is, let's see, can I say this? I think I can say this. Kevin will catch up with this. He's supposed to be coming out here in a few weeks, so I don't know when this is going to air. But Kevin's the designer, the creative director of Microsoft right now. He picked up his stuff from BMX Action Magazine, Freestyling Magazine, BMX. He used to do a freestyle team. After he rode his way out of childhood arthritis, there's a story.
Yeah.
Want me to tell that one?
Yeah, you could do that. I want to get him. He's a name on my list of somebody that I'd love to talk to. But yeah, you should tell that story.
You would love. Kevin's so intelligent. He is, yes. Oh, that would be, yes. You would come away. Kevin is kind of like Dom. You would come away with, okay, so you can interview me or Miranda or Greg Hill or whoever. That's all BMX people. These are, Kevin is, Dom, yeah, they're products of what we did back then. But it's a different look at BMX and freestyling. It's a look down the road.
Yeah.
Did I make that clear? I
Yeah.
hope I did.
Absolutely.
Kevin would make a great interview for you. He would.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to tell his story real quick?
Okay, yeah. So Kevin, I think at about 10, 11, 12 years old, somewhere in that area, had childhood arthritis so bad, his doctors thought he'd be in a wheelchair the rest of his life. His bedroom was on the second floor. The way he described it to me was that his father, he had arthritis so bad, his father couldn't even carry him upstairs the normal way you would carry a kid. He had to, I don't quite understand this, but this is how Kevin told me. He had to throw Kevin over his shoulder and carry him upstairs to get to his bedroom. Wow. I saw pictures of him walking. He has those things on his legs that they have a joint in the middle, and they're almost prosthetic things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a full leg brace.
And one day Kevin's at school and one of his buddies says, "Hey, take a look at this," and hands him BMX Action Magazine. This is true. This is all true. I did not know Kevin. He's back in New York. He's just one of the kids that from that day forward was a reader of BMX Action Magazine. And Kevin had some old bike in the garage. He asked his parents to buy him a mongoose, and they did. He had really good parents. I knew his mother a little bit. And he literally rode himself out of arthritis. And you meet him today, he's kind of an handsome dude, athletic. Like I said, he rides. He still rides. He rides mountain bikes. He rides BMX bikes. He probably still does freestyle tricks because back in the day he had a kind of a local New York freestyle team that they would go do shows. Anyway, that was Kevin.
So cool.
Yep.
That's
That, let me go back. I want to emphasize that his doctors thought he'd be in a wheelchair the whole rest of his life.
yeah.
And then he wrote himself out of it. That's BMX stuff. I bet there's thousands of stories. I know there are, in fact, thousands of stories. Maybe not quite that dramatic, or maybe more so. I don't know. But
Yeah.
there are thousands and thousands of stories that came out of that sport, those sports.
But just the value that comes from kids being on bikes is so far beyond what we even see in the immediate, in the forefront. And there's so much going on in the background. And I mean, it's, you know, as a photographer myself, is like the language there is, it's very much a depth of field, and you continue, it continues to unfold, and it continues to get clearer and clearer as we continue to have these conversations, because even the connection points, the conversation with Dom, the conversation with Kevin, and not only learning these stories, not only hearing these stories, but then being able to connect with other people, and for other people that don't know, for people at, you went to a modern BMX track, and most people did, if anybody, most people didn't know who you were. But for people to hear the stories of the investment that you have had on the sport, I just think is so valuable. So, yeah, we just continue to open up that aperture and and get a little bit
Depth
more.
of field. I like
Yeah.
your depth of field analogy.
I figured you might appreciate that one.
Yeah, it'd be like you're shooting at about F-22.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I rarely do because I really like the blur in the background.
I do all the time. I shoot at F-19, F-22 all the time.
Do you
with my
really?
portraits. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's
I
fascinating.
want every whisker, every wrinkle, every scar.
Well, your current photography, I was going to say modern, but the current photography that you're doing has so much life and so much story to it. And the photographs that you have taken and the gallery that you have created is stunning. And so when you talk about, you want every detail, I can 100% see that, completely see that.
Because every single detail, it's your eyes. First off, you probably know this as a photographer, your eyes. Your eyes tell the story or they don't. If
Yeah.
you got some big fake smile on your face, they don't. On the other hand, if you can get your subject serious, quiet, a relaxed face, your eyes begin to tell your story. And then everything else, the whiskers, the scars, the wrinkles, the old beat up cowboy hat, the worn clothes, everything else in that picture adds to the story your eyes tell.
Yeah.
That right there is what my photography is about. My current photography.
And I love it. Yeah, so much of it. It's spending time at your exhibit, walking around, looking at the photos, and really having the time to take and just take in the detail and the stories. And then, like I said, getting to have a conversation with Rose was really fun as well, because that just added a whole nother level.
I saw Rose about a month ago grocery store here, and she is doing just, you know what she's doing right now? She's still a biker, but right now, or at least a month ago, she's up in the Rocky Mountains hunting elk antlers. The elk
Wow.
drop their antlers at about this time, and she's up there like every day, way up in the Rocky Mountains, carrying out loads of by hand elk antlers.
Wow.
That is an interesting lady.
Wow.
And to everybody who missed the first mention of Rose, Rose is a biker. When I see her, she's usually wearing a pistol, and it's loaded. It's this old Smith and Wesson something or other, but it's loaded. She's got a holster on, walking out, which is totally legal. She's tattooed from top to bottom. She's usually wearing a biker vest. With the rocker, girls don't get into biker clubs or gangs, if you like that word better. They're too misogynistic to let girls in. But Rose spent, oh man, 6 years maybe in not Australia, New Zealand. And she hung out with the HAs, Hell's Angels, in New Zealand, to the point where they didn't give her their colors, but they gave her a rocker from the town, which I can't pronounce the name of the New Zealand town. But anyway, she wears that vest with the rocker on there, and that's about as close as a female can get to being accepted into a biker, like Hell's Angels or the Banditos or all these dudes, Vagos. There's some rough dudes out there.
Yeah.
Anyway, Rose is she is a very real, yeah, she's cool. She's interesting.
But she's just one more testament to the level of impact that you have had on people. And, you know, we talked about the story. Rose's story isn't BMX related. And, you know, we were talking about your current photography, which isn't BMX related, but the story that you pull from photos is something that you have done for for generations of people now, and for decades that you have spent in your perfecting your craft and honing your skill. And it's so incredible. And I speak on behalf of many people who are very grateful for what you have contributed to the different communities that you have found yourself in. So thank you.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that.
So
I think let's go back to St. Peter. If I went up to the pearly gates and St. Peter says, "Hey, buddy, I don't have much time, but just tell me what you did with your life," I would say, photographer. Period.
And you've done it well.
And I did it well.
Very well. Man,
And
Bob.
And so St. Peter would go, "What? Oh, photography. So what'd you photograph?" And that's when I tell him, buddy, sit down. Let me tell you the story.
How much time do you have?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, well, Bob, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jay. It's an honor. I'm honored.
I'm so grateful for your time, and I want to be mindful of your time too. And I'm just so thankful for having conversation with you and for getting to, you know, the connection point to Dom, and being able to get to know hear more about what you've done, what you've seen through the sport. And yeah, thank you for everything you've invested into the BMX community.
I hugely appreciate what you said. If you need Dom's or Kevin's connection, let me know. And thank you for having me on your podcast. This is a podcast, right?
Absolutely. It is. Yeah.
Okay. I thank you for that. I have completely enjoyed our conversation.
Oh,
Totally.
absolutely. Me too. Yeah, I'm so thankful for getting to chat with you. And I'll let you go for now, but I will definitely reach out for a little bit more contact information, and who knows, at some point we may have to circle back and have another conversation and
Chapter 2, man.
talk a
Yeah.
little bit more.
Talk to me after Dom's book release in LA,
Sounds good.
because there's going to be a lot of stories come out.
Are
of
you going to
that.
be there?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, both
well,
of them.
may-
LA and Oxford, England, too. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, maybe we'll just plan to see you there then.
I know for sure I will see you there. I know for sure you will be there.
Sounds good. Well, Bob, thank you so much. And we'll plan to connect in October when we cross paths there.
October, first week in October. Yes, we will.
Sounds good. Well, have an
Okay,
incredible
buddy.
day. Thank you again
You
for your
too.
time.
Thank you for your
Cool.
time. Appreciate it.
Take care, Bob.
Later,
Bye.
Jay.
Thank you for joining us in today's episode. It is because of people like you and our sponsors who make this whole thing possible, because they have a desire to see the sport grow. If you would like to get involved in the mission of BMX Breakthrough, you can start by going to your local track, find a way to volunteer, help out, and serve there. Or you can go to our website, bmxbreakthrough.com, in order to donate, find out about sponsorship, or learn more.